There's something magical about historic buildings from the late 1800s and up to the turn of the 20th century. Black and white photos show what San Diego's historic neighborhoods once looked like. Because so many historic buildings have been lost, architects John Eisenhardt and Ava Thorne from Union Architecture wanted to save this historic East Village Mexican Presbyterian church from 1906.
It's important to us to preserve these structures in the San Diego area and the entire country, really, to preserve them and for our future generation to appreciate.
The firm and ZMK Construction spearheaded the project. The church was moved from its original location to make room for a high-rise building, a story far too familiar in the downtown area. There are still some details to finalize, but the restoration looks magnificent. Michael's extensive historic restoration and preservation experience has led him on a path to save countless historic structures in Southern California. He has mastered the old way of doing things and has incorporated it with today's modern conveniences.
First of all, we have to identify the architecture of the house or the building. Many hours of research that takes place before we even start with a design or a restoration.
Preserving the structure's historic architectural fabric is vital. That's why Michael collaborates with experts like archaeologist and historic preservationist Ron May. The team carefully analyzes each site so the crew can recreate character-defining features to exact replicas.
We track down historical photos, we track down people who lived in the house, their grandchildren, we interview them, we get copies of their photos, of their family photos, and then we use them when we work with builders like Michael Kozam to restore the front of a building, a window, a facade.
This process is called a forensic examination. It's a painstaking practice, but the forensic details are critical to any restoration. And finding the right person with substantial historic restoration experience is also essential to the project's success. Preservationists strongly believe that historic commercial and residential buildings should be protected and preserved in order to maintain the community's identity. Ron and Michael have teamed up on numerous home restoration projects. They take the same approach when it comes to residential historic sites. Like this Mission Hills home of Vince Patrencio, an entire section was added.
And given the history of the house and the architectural vintage, how do you do that? How do you find the right person to accomplish that? And it goes back to what we're talking about. It was Michael and his team.
Bankers Hill historic homeowners Chris and Susie Clausen wanted the same results. They did their homework and hired Michael. The home has a new kitchen and the entire project looks amazing.
Having read this literature available at the Historical Society in Balboa Park, we learned about the history of this street, not just this house, and we felt not an obligation, but maybe a desire to resurrect it, which is what the end result is, thanks to Michael and his crew.
When we talk about adding space to an older house, for example, or a vintage building, we want bigger closets, we want bigger bathrooms and things like that of today. And so I really had to think about how I'm going to stitch the old and the new together very, very delicately.
These historic projects have been restored and preserved, but as more modern structures spring up in historic neighborhoods, Michael is more motivated than ever to preserve our history and these historic buildings.